Welcome to Occult Mysticism, your gateway to the mysteries of the unseen. Today we dive into the Kybalion, a timeless text by the three initiates that unveils the secrets of Hermetic philosophy. Explore the legacy of Hermes Trismegistus and the seven universal laws: mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, and gender that govern all planes of existence. Join us on this journey to unlock the hidden wisdom guiding the soul from illusion to mastery. In the hallowed halls of ancient wisdom, where the echoes of timeless truths reverberate through the ages, few texts possess the profound resonance and enigmatic allure of the Kybalion. Penned by the anonymous three initiates, this deceptively modest volume unfolds as a majestic tapestry, intricately woven with the threads of Hermetic philosophy. A system of thought attributed to the legendary Hermes Trismegistus, revered by the ancient Egyptians as the scribe of the gods and the master of masters. Far more than a historical exposé, the Kybalion presents itself as an invaluable master key, designed to unlock the myriad clandestine chambers of occult knowledge, to harmonize seemingly divergent spiritual doctrines, and to cast an illuminating gaze upon the very bedrock of existence, revealing a singular, underlying unity orchestrated by immutable universal laws. Its prose, a captivating blend of formal erudition and poetic flourish, beckons the perceptive reader to embark on an intellectual and spiritual odyssey, where the conventional demarcations between mind, matter, and spirit gracefully dissolve, unveiling a reality far grander and more interconnected than ordinarily perceived. The grand overture of the Kybalion commences with a fervent dedication to Hermes Trismegistus, a figure of almost mythical stature, from whom all foundational esoteric teachings are said to have emanated. This initial invocation immediately establishes the book's profound reverence for the lineage of Hermetic wisdom, emphasizing the sacred secrecy that has historically enshrouded its truths. For millennia, this profound knowledge was transmitted from lip to ear, entrusted only to a select fraternity of initiates deemed spiritually and intellectually prepared to receive its potent revelations. The authors meticulously argue that this policy of reticence was not born of an exclusionary elitism, but rather from a profound, pragmatic wisdom, a necessary safeguard against the inevitable misinterpretation, corruption, and often brutal persecution that frequently befell those audacious enough to cast such luminous pearls before the uncomprehending and often hostile gaze of the uninitiated masses. The Kybalion's explicit ambition is not to erect a novel theological edifice or to inaugurate a new cult, but rather to distill and articulate the fundamental operational principles of Hermeticism, thereby empowering earnest students to apply these truths with sagacity and purpose, transcending haphazard or superstitious practices. It promises to be a guiding light through the labyrinth of occult studies, providing coherence to fragments of truth that might otherwise appear contradictory. The philosophical bedrock of the Kybalion, and indeed the very crucible from which its profound insights are forged, lies in its exposition of seven Hermetic principles. These principles are not mere intellectual constructs or abstract theorems. They are presented as immutable declarations of the universe's intrinsic nature, serving as the foundational, universal laws that govern all phenomena across every conceivable plane of existence, from the densest material realm to the most ethereal spiritual dimensions. The principle of mentalism, the all is mind, the universe is mental. Of all the Hermetic tenets, this principle stands as the most radical, the most expansive, and arguably the most foundational. It proclaims with an audacious simplicity that the all, the ultimate, irreducible, substantial reality that underpins all outward manifestations and fleeting appearances is, in its profound essence, an infinite, living, universal mind. This boundless consciousness, which the enlightened sages often refer to as spirit, is utterly unknowable and undefinable in its purest form, yet it can be conceived and thought of as a living, infinite mentality. The inevitable corollary of this principle is that the entire phenomenal world, the vast and intricate tapestry of the universe with its countless forms of matter, its ceaseless flows of energy, and its boundless expressions of life, is nothing more and nothing less than a mental creation. This grand cosmic thought exists and unfolds solely within the vast, boundless mind of the All, a reality in which, as the ancient saying goes, we live and move and have our being. This startling revelation fundamentally dismantles conventional materialistic paradigms, which typically posit matter as the ultimate reality. Instead, it offers an elegantly comprehensive explanation for the myriad mental and psychic phenomena that have historically perplexed scientific inquiry and defied conventional understanding. From telepathy to conscious manifestation, the principle of mentalism provides a coherent framework, elevating the power of mind to an unprecedented and supreme position. To truly grasp and internalize this monumental principle, the Hermetists assert, is to have taken a significant stride along the path to spiritual and intellectual mastery. It illuminates the intricate laws governing the mental universe, transforming the aspiring student from a mere passive observer into an active, intelligent participant, capable of consciously applying these great mental laws rather than being a slave to their unconscious operations. Without this conceptual master key, true mastery is deemed impossible, leaving the earnest seeker to knock in vain at the numerous veiled portals of the Temple of Knowledge. The three initiates are careful to clarify that the all, in its absolute ultimate essence, remains eternally unknowable. No finite mind, however profound, can fully comprehend the infinite. Any theories, conjectures, or theological speculations attempting to define the inner nature of the all are dismissed as the well-intentioned, yet ultimately futile, efforts of mortal minds attempting to grasp the illimitable. To ascribe human characteristics, emotions, desires, or even the pettiest human attributes, such as jealousy, susceptibility to flattery, or a yearning for worship, to the all is deemed not merely an error, but a profound act of intellectual presumptuousness, a vestige of humanity's philosophical infancy. However, while its ultimate nature remains veiled, certain undeniable truths about its existence can be logically deduced through reason. The all must, by its very nature, be all that truly exists. There can be nothing outside of it, for if there were, it would cease to be the all. It must be infinite in time, thus eternal, having always existed and always continuing to exist, for nothing could have created it, nor could it ever cease to be. It must be infinite in space, omnipresent, pervading everywhere without break or interruption. And it must be infinite in power, absolute, subject to no other force, for no other power could possibly exist outside of its infinitude. Consequently, the all must be immutable, unchanging in its real nature, for there is nothing into which it could change, nor from which it could have been derived. This leads to a profound and seemingly contradictory state of affairs. The divine paradox: if the all is infinite, absolute, eternal, and unchanging, then anything finite, changeable, fleeting, and conditioned must, in ultimate reality, be as nothing. Yet, we perceive a universe teeming with finite, changeable things. The reconciliation lies in the mental nature of creation. Just as the human mind, though finite, can conjure vivid mental images, construct intricate narratives, and even create entire imagined worlds that possess a temporary, relative reality within that mind, so too does the all, in its boundless mentality, generate and sustain countless universes. These universes, though seemingly external and objective to the finite minds within them, are in fact grand, intricate thoughts held within the divine mind. The two are similar in kind, but infinitely different in degree. This analogy, while necessarily imperfect due to the vast qualitative difference between finite and infinite creation, serves as a crucial conceptual bridge, hinting at the universe as a dynamic, evolving thought within the supreme consciousness of the all. The infinite mind of the all is the womb of universes, states the Kybalion, painting a vivid picture of cosmic gestation. This mental creative act also subtly introduces the principle of gender, as the all manifests masculine will and feminine generative aspects in its act of creation, not as separate deities, but as inherent principles within its singular being. The principle of correspondence, as above, so below, as below, so above. This second Hermetic principle stands as the universal master key, a profound Rosetta Stone for deciphering the intricate hieroglyphs of existence. It declares an unshakable harmony, a profound agreement, and an exact correspondence between the laws and phenomena operating across the manifold planes of manifestation, life, and being. The ancient Hermetic axiom, as above, so below, as below, so above, is not merely a poetic utterance, but a fundamental statement of interconnectedness. Its truth stems from the fact that all that is encompassed within the universe, in all its astonishing diversity, emanates from the selfsame singular source, the All. Consequently, the same fundamental laws, principles, and characteristics that govern the macrocosm find their precise analogues, their echoing reflections, and their consistent operations within every unit, every particle, and every combination of activity, each manifesting its own unique phenomena upon its respective plane. This principle empowers the discerning Hermetic student to transcend the limitations of direct observation, enabling them to reason intelligently from the known to the unknown. By meticulously studying the monad, one can begin to comprehend the archangel. By observing the patterns of a single atom, one can infer the grand choreography of galaxies. It implies a reality that is fractal in its essence, where recurring patterns and resonant echoes ripple throughout the vast expanse of creation, allowing for profound deductions about the grand universal scheme by scrutinizing its smallest, most accessible parts, and vice versa. This principle is not merely theoretical. It is a practical tool for unlocking deeper understanding and for navigating the complex interplay of forces that govern existence. It suggests that the same principles of vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, and gender that manifest on the physical plane are equally active, albeit in subtler forms, on the mental and spiritual planes. For the sake of intellectual clarity and ease of study, the Hermetic philosophy conceptually divides the universe into three overarching categories of phenomena, termed the three great planes, I the great physical plane, I, the great mental plane, and I, the great spiritual plane. However, the authors are quick to emphasize that these divisions are largely artificial and arbitrary, serving as conceptual scaffolding rather than rigid boundaries. In truth, all three divisions represent ascending degrees within the grand, continuous scale of life, where the lowest point is undifferentiated matter and the highest approaches the very spirit of the all. Crucially, these planes are not distinct, isolated compartments, but seamlessly interpenetrate and shade into one another, rendering any sharp demarcation between the higher phenomena of the physical and the lower of the mental, or between the higher of the mental and the lower of the spiritual, impossible to draw. They are, in essence, three vast groups of degrees in the manifestation of life. A common query from neophytes concerns the precise meaning of the term plane. The Kybalion clarifies that a plane is neither a physical place with ordinary spatial dimensions nor merely an abstract state or condition. Rather, it is a degree of dimension in a scale subject to measurement. This paradox is elucidated by introducing a fourth dimension. Not an additional spatial measurement, but the dimension of vibration. This concept, now corroborated by modern science, yet understood by Hermetists millennia ago, stems from the third Hermetic principle. Everything is in motion, everything vibrates, nothing is at rest. Every conceivable thing in the universe, from the highest spiritual manifestation to the grossest matter, vibrates. These vibrations occur not only at different rates of motion, but also in varying directions and modes. The differing degrees of these vibratory rates constitute the measurements on the scale of vibrations, defining the respective planes. The higher the rate of vibration, the higher the plane, and the higher the form of life manifesting upon that plane. Thus, a plane encapsulates qualities common to both a condition and a dimension, representing a distinct vibratory stratum within the continuum of existence. The Hermetists further subdivide each of these three great planes into 7 minor planes, and each of these minor planes is again subdivided into 7 subplanes. All these divisions, while helpful for systematic study, remain conceptual and fluid, reflecting the continuous nature of the vibratory scale. The great physical plane encompasses all phenomena related to physics, material things, forces, and their manifestations. It includes all forms of what is commonly called matter and energy. However, the Hermetic philosophy diverges from traditional materialism by asserting that matter is not an independent thing in itself, but rather a form of energy. Specifically, energy vibrating at a very low rate. Accordingly, matter is classified under the umbrella of energy and is allocated 3 of the 7 minor planes of the great physical plane, plane of matter, Ra, Har, B, and Kh, representing increasingly subtle forms of matter beyond conventional scientific recognition. The plane of ethereal substance, often referred to as the ether by science, serves as a crucial connecting link between matter and energy, pervading universal space and transmitting various forms of vibratory energy like light and heat. Above this lie the planes of energy, I, A, B, and C, encompassing known forms of energy, heat, light, magnetism, electricity, attraction, and progressively higher, subtler forms of energy, some of which bear characteristics of life and are utilized by beings on the spiritual plane, perceived by ordinary man as divine power. The great mental plane comprises all forms of living things, known in ordinary life, as well as those recognized by occultists. Its 7 minor mental planes are mineral mind, elemental mind, Aa, plant mind, elemental mind, Bi, animal mind, elemental mind, Cii, and human mind, Ard Ci. This classification, while arbitrary, maps out the ascending degrees of mental and vital development. The concept of mineral mind is particularly intriguing, positing that even minerals possess a rudimentary form of mind, soul, and life, manifested in their loves and hates, attractions and repulsions, and affinities. Modern science, with its exploration of atomic and molecular interactions, is slowly converging with this ancient Hermetic view. The elemental minds represent classes of invisible entities existing between the more familiar kingdoms, serving as connecting links in the evolutionary scale. The plane of human mind is further subdivided, with the average person occupying only the 4th subdivision, hinting at vast potential for evolutionary progress beyond current human understanding towards Superman and Overman states. Finally, the great spiritual plane transcends human comprehension, for its states of being, life, and mind are so vastly superior that they defy finite description. Its 7 minor planes, each with 7 subdivisions, are home to beings like angels, archangels, and demigods, whose existence, intelligence, and power far exceed human imagination, approaching what mortals attribute to deities. Even the highest masters and adepts among men reside on the lower minor planes of this spiritual realm. These beings, while immensely powerful, are still creations within the mind of the All and are subject to universal laws. They are mortal in the absolute sense, serving as elder brethren who forego ultimate absorption into the All to guide humanity. The spirit, in Hermetic context, signifies living power, animated force, or inner essence, not merely religious piety. Hermetists caution that spiritual power can be used for both good and ill, underscoring the sacred and potentially dangerous nature of this knowledge, which is carefully guarded within esoteric fraternities. Misuse of spiritual power, they warn, results in a terrible karmic swing back to lower states of existence, a concept echoing the legends of fallen angels. The principle of vibration: nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. This profound declaration, the 3rd Hermetic principle, enshrines the truth that perpetual motion is the very fabric of the universe. From the infinitesimally small to the unimaginably vast, nothing is truly at rest. Everything moves, vibrates, and describes elliptical or circular paths. While some early Greek philosophers intuited aspects of this principle, it largely faded from public consciousness for centuries, remaining a closely guarded secret within Hermetic circles. However, the scientific resurgence of the 19th century, and particularly the groundbreaking discoveries of the 20th century, dramatically rediscovered and unequivocally verified this ancient Hermetic doctrine. Modern physics, with its revelations about subatomic particles, quantum fluctuations, and the dynamic nature of energy fields, continually provides additional empirical proof of this timeless truth. The Hermetic teachings extend this principle far beyond the material realm. They assert that not only is everything in constant movement and vibration, but that the entire spectrum of perceived differences between the myriad manifestations of the universal power, be it matter, energy, mind, or even spirit, arises solely from varying rates and modes of vibration. At one extreme of this vibratory pole lies the All itself, pure spirit, manifesting a vibration of such infinite intensity and rapidity that, paradoxically, it appears practically at rest. The ancient teachers would often draw an analogy to a rapidly revolving wheel, which, at a certain speed, appears to be perfectly stationary to the human eye. At the opposite pole resides the densest, grossest forms of matter, characterized by incredibly low rates of vibration, which also give the illusion of rest or inertia. Between these two poles, a boundless continuum exists, comprising millions upon millions of distinct rates and modes of vibration, each corresponding to a unique manifestation in the cosmic scale. Modern science, in its ongoing quest for understanding, has confirmed that all phenomena we categorize as matter and energy are fundamentally modes of vibratory motion. Leading scientists are increasingly converging with the long-held position of occultists, recognizing that the subtle and intricate phenomena of mind are likewise complex modes of vibration or motion. Consider the scientific understanding of matter. Every object, regardless of its perceived temperature, exhibits heat vibrations, indicating constant internal motion. Particles, from subatomic corpuscles to galaxies, are in incessant circular movement. Molecules oscillate and gyrate, composed of atoms that are themselves miniature solar systems of rapidly moving electrons or corpuscles. Even the seemingly inert stone beneath one's foot is a swirling vortex of energy, vibrating at a specific rate that gives it its apparent solidity. The same vibratory principle applies to the various forms of energy. Science recognizes light, heat, magnetism, and electricity as distinct forms of vibratory motion, intimately connected with and likely emanating from the elusive ether. While the precise nature of fundamental forces like cohesion, molecular attraction, chemical affinity, atomic attraction, and especially gravitation, the attraction between all masses, remains a profound mystery to conventional science, Hermetists have taught for ages that these too are manifestations of specific forms of vibratory energy. The universal ether, postulated by science but dimly understood, is, in Hermetic understanding, a higher manifestation of what is erroneously termed matter, a form of matter at an exceptionally high degree of vibration, possessing extreme tenuity and elasticity, pervading all space and acting as the medium for all forms of vibratory energy transmission. A classic illustration offered by scientists and Hermetists alike to demonstrate the effects of increasing vibratory rates is that of a rapidly moving object, such as a wheel or cylinder. At a slow speed, the object is clearly visible and no sound is emitted. As its speed gradually increases, a low growl or note becomes audible, then rising through the musical scale as the rate intensifies. Eventually, the pitch becomes so high that it transcends the range of human hearing, resulting in an apparent silence. Yet, the vibrations continue, manifesting as rising degrees of heat, causing the object to glow a dull red, then progressively through orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet as the vibratory rate continues to increase. Beyond the visible spectrum, invisible rays like X-rays and other subtle light forms are emitted. Electricity and magnetism manifest when specific vibratory rates are attained. The Hermetic teachings further extrapolate, if the vibrations were to be continually increased, the object would progressively transmute through successive states of manifestation. Its molecules would disintegrate into atoms, atoms into corpuscles, and even corpuscles would dissolve into the ethereal substance. Beyond this, the object would ascend through various mental stages, and finally, spiritward, until it reintegrates into the All, which is absolute spirit. This illustration, though limited by finite perception, powerfully conveys the dynamic, vibratory nature of all reality and the continuous spectrum that links matter, energy, mind, and spirit. Crucially, Hermetic teachings extend the principle of vibration to the realm of thought and emotion. Every thought, every feeling, every mental state or condition is accompanied by its corresponding rate and mode of vibration. A portion of these vibrations is constantly thrown off, tending to affect the minds of others through a process known as induction. This is the underlying principle behind phenomena such as telepathy, mental influence, and the power of mind over mind, which are increasingly gaining recognition in the public sphere. By consciously applying the principle of vibration to mental phenomena, an individual can, through an effort of will, polarize their mind at any desired degree, thereby gaining profound control over their own mental states, moods, and emotions. Furthermore, with appropriate training and practice, this mastery can extend to influencing the minds of others, producing desired mental states in them, a process akin to a musician producing specific tones by causing an instrument to vibrate at a precise rate. This capability is at the heart of mental transmutation, one of the most potent branches of the Hermetic art. The masters and adepts who appear to set aside the laws of nature are in reality simply utilizing this principle, employing higher laws to overcome lower ones, changing the vibrations of objects or energy forms, and thus performing what are often mistakenly labeled miracles. As an old Hermetic writer aptly stated, "He who understands the principle of vibration has grasped the scepter of power." The principle of polarity: everything is dual, everything has poles, everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled. This profound fourth Hermetic principle unravels the inherent duality woven into the very fabric of all manifested things. It proclaims that every phenomenon, every concept, every state of being possesses two sides, two aspects, two poles, forming a pair of opposites, with an infinite spectrum of manifold degrees existing between these two extremes. This principle provides the intellectual solvent for countless ancient paradoxes that have ceaselessly perplexed the human mind. Humanity, throughout its history, has intuitively recognized this duality, endeavoring to express it through various aphorisms such as "everything is and isn't at the same time," "all truths are but half-truths," or "there are two sides to everything." The Hermetic teachings boldly assert that the perceived difference between things that appear diametrically opposed to one another is, in reality, merely a matter of degree along a continuous scale. It teaches that the pairs of opposites may be reconciled, and that thesis and antithesis are identical in nature but different in degree. The universal reconciliation of opposites, a central aim of Hermetic wisdom, is achieved through a profound recognition and understanding of this principle of polarity. The Hermetic masters consistently offer countless illustrations of this principle, drawn from every conceivable aspect of existence. They begin by demonstrating that spirit and matter, seemingly the most antithetical of concepts, are merely the two extreme poles of the same underlying reality, with all intermediate planes representing varying degrees of vibration along this continuous spectrum. Similarly, the all and the many are revealed as two poles of the same mental manifestation, differing only in degree. Even abstract concepts like law and laws, or principle and principles, or infinite mind and finite minds conform to this pervasive duality. Delving into the physical plane, the principle is vividly illustrated by the relationship between heat and cold. These are not two distinct entities, but rather identical in nature, with the difference residing solely in degrees of vibration. A thermometer clearly displays a continuum of temperatures, with cold at one pole and heat at the other, and innumerable gradations in between. There is no absolute point where heat ceases and cold begins. It is all a matter of higher or lower vibratory rates. The very terms high and low are themselves relative poles of the same concept. The same applies to spatial directions. Travel far enough east, and you eventually find yourself traveling west, returning to your starting point from the opposite direction. Light and darkness are not distinct, but poles of the same phenomenon, with varying degrees separating them. The musical scale, with its ascent from one C to the next, and the spectrum of colors, from low red to high violet, similarly illustrate this principle. Differences in pitch or hue are merely differences in vibratory frequency. Even seemingly disparate qualities like large and small, noise and quiet, hard and soft, sharp and dull, and positive and negative are all fundamentally relative expressions of the same underlying quality, existing on a scale between two poles. This principle extends with profound implications to the mental plane. Love and hate, for instance, are commonly regarded as entirely opposite and irreconcilable emotions. However, applying the principle of polarity reveals that there is no such thing as absolute love or absolute hate. They are merely terms applied to the two extreme poles of the same underlying emotional continuum. As one ascends the scale, one finds more love or less hate. As one descends, more hate or less love. There are subtle gradations and a middle ground of like or dislike, where the distinction becomes blurred. Similarly, courage and fear are two poles of the same psychological quality. The pervasive existence of these pairs of opposites in every aspect of mental life is undeniable. Where one finds one thing, its opposite, its complementary pole, is invariably present. It is precisely this fundamental fact, the dual nature of all things, that provides the Hermetist with the supreme power to transmute one mental state into another through the art of polarization. The key insight is that things belonging to different classes cannot be transmuted into each other, e.g., love cannot become a color or a direction, but things of the same class can be transformed by altering their polarity. Thus, love can, and often does, transmute into hate, and conversely, hate can be transformed into love simply by changing its polarity along the mental scale. Fear can be transmuted into courage, hardness into softness, dullness into sharpness, and heat into cold. The transmutation always occurs within the bounds of the same underlying quality, merely changing its degree or expression. For example, a person afflicted by fear can, by consciously raising their mental vibrations along the fear-courage spectrum, cultivate the highest degree of courage and fearlessness. A slothful individual can transform into an active, energetic one by consciously polarizing themselves towards the desired quality. Many modern psychological techniques, particularly those used in mental science for habit breaking and self-improvement, unconsciously apply this Hermetic principle. Instead of directly combating a negative quality, the Hermetic approach advocates for concentrating on and cultivating its positive counterpart. To banish darkness from a room, one does not attempt to shovel it out. One simply opens the shutters and lets in the light. Similarly, to kill out a negative quality, one must concentrate on the positive pole of that same quality. Through persistent practice, the vibrations gradually shift from negative to positive until the individual becomes polarized on the desired positive pole. The converse is equally true. Allowing oneself to consistently vibrate on the negative pole inevitably reinforces undesirable states. By consciously changing one's polarity, one can master moods, alter mental states, remold disposition, and fundamentally build character. A significant portion of the mental mastery achieved by advanced Hermetics is directly attributable to their skilled application of polarity, which is a pivotal aspect of mental transmutation. The Hermetic axiom resonates powerfully. Mind, as well as metals and elements, may be transmuted from state to state, degree to degree, condition to condition, pole to pole, vibration to vibration. The mastery of polarization is, therefore, the mastery of the foundational principles of mental alchemy. For without the ability to shift one's own polarity, true influence over one's inner world and outer environment remains elusive. This principle, while simple in concept, demands persistent patience, diligent study, and consistent practice for its profound results to manifest. The principle of rhythm. Everything flows out and in, everything has its tides, all things rise and fall. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. The great fifth Hermetic principle, the principle of rhythm, encapsulates the fundamental truth that all phenomena in the universe are characterized by a measured, undulating motion, a perpetual flow and inflow, a swing backward and forward, a pendulum-like oscillation, a tide-like ebb and flow. This rhythmic movement manifests perpetually between the two poles established by the principle of polarity. It is crucial to understand that this does not imply a constant swing to the absolute extreme poles. Such occurrences are rare. Rather, the swing is always towards one pole and then towards the other. This rhythmic interplay of action and reaction, advance and retreat, rising and sinking, is discernible in every conceivable aspect and phenomenon of the universe. From the grand cosmic cycles of suns and worlds to the intricate dance of atoms and molecules, from the rise and fall of nations and civilizations to the fleeting moods and emotions within the human mind. The principle of rhythm is universally evident. Even spirit itself, at its highest manifestation, exhibits this principle in the outpouring and indrawing phases, metaphorically described by Brahmins as the outbreathing and inbreathing of Brahm. Universes are created, reach their peak of materiality, and then commence their upward evolutionary swing back towards spirit. Suns are born, attain their zenith of power, then begin their gradual process of retrogression, eventually becoming dense, dead masses, awaiting a new impulse to rekindle their energies. Similarly, all forms of life, all philosophies, creeds, fashions, and governments follow this inexorable cycle of birth, growth, maturity, decadence, and eventual new birth. The pendulum of existence is in constant, inexorable motion. On a more tangible level, night invariably follows day, and day, night. The seasons cycle from summer to winter and back again. Even at the microscopic level, corpuscles, atoms, and molecules incessantly orbit and vibrate. There is no absolute state of rest or cessation of movement. All motion partakes of this universal rhythm. This principle is of boundless application, extending to every question and phenomenon across all planes of life, from the material to the mental to the spiritual, and profoundly influencing all phases of human activity. The universal pendulum swings ceaselessly, and the tides of life flow in and out according to this immutable law. While modern science acknowledges the principle of rhythm as a universal law applicable to material phenomena, e.g., wave mechanics, planetary orbits, the Hermetists extend its dominion much further. They reveal its profound manifestations and pervasive influence on the mental activities of man, attributing to it the bewildering succession of moods, feelings, and other perplexing emotional fluctuations that we observe within ourselves. However, unlike the uninitiated who are helplessly swayed by these rhythmic swings, the Hermetic masters, through diligent study and practice of this principle, have learned to escape many of its debilitating effects through a process known as transmutation, specifically applying the law of neutralization. The masters discovered that while the principle of rhythm is invariable and always active in mental phenomena, its manifestation occurs on two distinct planes of consciousness, the lower and the higher. Their profound insight enabled them to consciously ascend to the higher plane of consciousness, thereby circumventing the rhythmic pendulum's swing as it manifests on the lower, unconscious plane. In essence, the negative swing of the pendulum occurs on the unconscious mental plane, while their elevated consciousness remains unaffected. This law of neutralization involves raising the ego, the higher self, above the ordinary vibratory range of unconscious mental activity. It is akin to rising above a tumultuous current and allowing it to pass beneath you without being swept away. The Hermetic master or advanced student deliberately polarizes themselves at the desired positive pole, and through a conscious refusal or denial of the backward swing's influence, they maintain their firm, polarized position. The mental pendulum is allowed to swing back along the unconscious plane, but their conscious awareness remains steadfast and undisturbed. Many individuals who achieve any degree of self-mastery, even unconsciously, apply this law by simply refusing to allow their negative moods and mental states to affect their core being. However, the master, with a profound understanding of the underlying law, achieves a far greater degree of proficiency, wielding their will to attain a level of poise and mental firmness that seems almost unbelievable to those who remain slaves to the fluctuating pendulum of moods and feelings. The significance of this mastery cannot be overstated. Any reflective person can appreciate how deeply the swings of rhythm impact human life, how periods of enthusiastic upliftment are often invariably followed by a corresponding descent into depression, or how moments of courage are succeeded by equal measures of fear. The majority of people are unwitting victims of these emotional tides, never comprehending the underlying cause. An understanding of this principle provides the key to mastering these rhythmic fluctuations, enabling self-awareness and the ability to avoid being carried away by the relentless inflows and outflows of emotion. The will, when consciously exercised, stands superior to the conscious manifestation of this principle, even though the principle itself is indestructible. One cannot annul the law of rhythm, but one can escape its effects. The pendulum will always swing, but the master can choose not to be carried along with it. Furthermore, the principle of rhythm is intricately linked with the law of compensation. This law dictates that the measure of the swing in one direction determines the equal measure of the swing in the opposite direction. One balances or counterbalances the other. The Kybalion succinctly states, "The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates." On the physical plane, this law is readily observed. A clock's pendulum swings an equal distance to the right as it does to the left. Seasons balance each other, tides follow this exact law. A short swing in one direction corresponds to a short swing in the other. A long swing implies an equally long counterswing. An object hurled to a certain height will traverse an equal distance on its return. The Hermetists extend this law of compensation to the mental states of human beings. They teach that a person who experiences keen pleasure is equally capable of enduring keen suffering, while one who feels little pain is also capable of experiencing only limited joy. There is an inherent balance in the capacity for pleasure and pain within each individual temperament. The most intriguing application of this law, as presented by the Hermetists, concerns its operation across lifetimes. They suggest that before one can enjoy a certain degree of pleasure, one must have swung proportionately as far towards the opposite pole of feeling, meaning a corresponding degree of pain must have been experienced previously, either in the current life or in a past incarnation. This casts a profound and novel light on the age-old problem of pain, transforming it from an arbitrary infliction into an integral part of a larger, compensatory rhythmic cycle within the continuous chain of an individual's reincarnated existence. However, the Hermetists reaffirm that the Master, through the conscious process of neutralization, can significantly mitigate the swing towards pain by consistently operating from the higher plane of the ego, thereby transcending many of the painful experiences that afflict those dwelling on lower planes. The law of compensation, therefore, underscores the fundamental balance in all aspects of life. Everything gained is compensated by something lost, and vice versa. It perpetually strives to maintain equilibrium, even if it requires multiple lifetimes for the pendulum of rhythm to complete its compensatory swing. The principle of cause and effect: every cause has its effect, every effect has its cause, everything happens according to law. Chance is but a name for law not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law. This pivotal sixth Hermetic principle unequivocally asserts that a singular, all-pervasive law governs the entire universe, maintaining an unbroken chain of causality. Nothing, absolutely nothing, happens by chance. The term chance, far from denoting a capricious force, is merely a linguistic placeholder, a convenient label for a cause or chain of causes that remains unrecognized, unperceived, or misunderstood by the observer. Phenomena are presented as a continuous, seamless flow, utterly devoid of breaks or exceptions to this universal law. The principle of cause and effect forms the very bedrock of all scientific thought, both ancient and modern, and was articulated with profound clarity by the Hermetic teachers in the earliest epochs of human history. While subsequent philosophical and scientific schools have engaged in countless debates concerning the intricate details of this principle's operation, or the precise definitions of certain terms, the fundamental truth of cause and effect has been universally accepted by virtually all thinkers of repute. To conceive of a universe where events occur without a cause or independently of a causal chain would be to relegate the cosmos from the domain of order and predictability into a realm of chaotic lawlessness governed by an imaginary entity called chance. A moment's diligent reflection swiftly reveals the illusory nature of pure chance. The Kybalion dissects the common understanding of the word chance, which is derived from a term meaning to fall, as in the falling of dice, implying a random, uncaused happening. Yet, a deeper examination exposes this as a profound misconception. The fall of a die, far from being random, adheres to laws as infallible as those governing the celestial dance of planets. Behind each seemingly arbitrary outcome lies a complex web of preceding causes. The die's initial position in the box, the precise muscular energy expended in the throw, the minute irregularities of the table's surface, and an infinitely regressing chain of unseen antecedent causes, all subtly influencing the final result. If these initial conditions were precisely replicated, the outcome would be precisely the same every time. Given the same causes, the same results will follow. There is always a cause and a because. For every event, nothing ever happens without a cause, or rather, an intricate chain of causes. The text illuminates the complexity of causality through vivid analogies. Just as an individual traces their lineage back through an exponentially increasing number of ancestors, 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents, and so on. So too does even the most trifling event, like a tiny speck of soot drifting past one's eye, possess an immeasurable chain of preceding causes. That speck of soot was once part of a massive tree trunk, which became coal, then was burned, and so on, until its present transient appearance. This intricate chain of events not only brought it to its current state, but will continue to generate further effects for centuries to come. The very act of writing and reading the Kybalion itself is an effect of countless prior causes and will, in turn, become a cause, subtly influencing lives far beyond the immediate interaction, demonstrating the profound interconnectedness and relativity of all things. The Hermetic wisdom reminds us, there is no great, there is no small, in the mind that causeth all. The Kybalion deliberately avoids entering into the age-old philosophical debate of free will versus determinism, recognizing that both concepts are half-truths, opposing poles of a larger, more complex truth as revealed by the principle of polarity. Hermetic teachings assert that a human being can simultaneously be both free and bound by necessity, depending on the interpretation of these terms and the plane of truth from which the matter is examined. Ancient writers expressed this by stating, "The further the creation is from the center, the more it is bound. The nearer the center it reaches, the nearer free is it." The vast majority of humanity lives largely as slaves to heredity, environment, and external influences. They are swayed by societal opinions, customs, and the thoughts of others, as well as by their own internal emotions, feelings, and moods, exhibiting very little true self-mastery. They may vehemently claim their freedom, asserting, "I do just what I want to do," yet fail to scrutinize the origins of those wants and pleases. What truly compels them to want one thing over another, or to please, to do this but not that? The Hermetic Master, however, through understanding and applying these principles, transcends this state. They can deliberately change their pleases and wants to their polar opposites, choosing to will rather than merely reacting to internal impulses or external suggestions. Most people, like stones tumbling down a mountainside, are passively carried along by environment, the desires of stronger wills, inherited tendencies, and pervasive suggestions, much like pawns on the chessboard of life. They play their assigned roles and are then set aside. But the masters, having meticulously studied and comprehended the profound rules of the game, elevate themselves above the ordinary plane of cause and effect. By consciously aligning themselves with the higher powers of their own nature, they gain dominion over their moods, character, qualities, and polarity, and even their surrounding environment. In so doing, they transform from being mere pawns into active movers, from effects into deliberate causes. While they remain subject to the causation operating on higher planes, they consciously cooperate with these higher laws, thereby mastering the circumstances on the lower planes. They become a conscious, contributing part of the law itself, rather than blind instruments of it. As the Kybalion elegantly phrases it, the wise ones serve on the higher but rule on the lower. They obey the laws coming from above them, but on their own plane, and those below them they rule and give orders. They do not defy the law, but rather fall in with it, understanding its movements and operating it, much like a skilled swimmer navigating a current, rather than being a log passively carried by it. This profound insight underscores that freedom and mastery are achieved not by escaping the law, but by understanding and wielding it from a higher perspective. The notion of chance is thus abolished by reason, replaced by the omnipresence of universal law, where even the smallest event is part of the all's grand design. The principle of gender? Gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes. This culminating seventh Hermetic principle unveils a universal truth. Gender, in its profoundest Hermetic sense, is omnipresent. It asserts that the masculine and feminine principles are eternally present and dynamically active in every phase of phenomena, across each and every plane of life, physical, mental, and even spiritual. It is paramount from the outset to clearly distinguish Hermetic gender from the commonly understood term sex. Sex refers specifically to the physical distinctions between male and female within organic life on the physical plane. Gender, however, is derived from a Latin root meaning to beget, to procreate, to generate, to create, to produce, encompassing a far broader and more fundamental meaning. Its sole office is creation and production, and its manifestations are visible on every conceivable plane of existence. While direct scientific proof of this universal application is still developing, the Kybalion offers compelling insights and anticipates future scientific corroboration. For instance, the principle is distinctly manifested in the behavior of corpuscles, ions, or electrons, the fundamental building blocks of matter according to modern science. The latest scientific understanding reveals the atom as a swirling multitude of negative corpuscles, electrons, clustering around a positive nucleus. This phenomenon, the formation of the atom, is precisely aligned with ancient Hermetic teachings that have consistently identified the masculine principle of gender with the positive pole and the feminine principle with the negative pole of electricity. The authors address a crucial misconception regarding the terms positive and negative in science. While common parlance associates positive with strength and reality and negative with unreality or weakness, This is a misapplication in electrical phenomena. The so-called negative pole of a battery, for example, is paradoxically the pole where the generation or production of new forms and energies occurs. There is nothing negative about its creative capacity. Modern scientific authorities, recognizing this inaccuracy, have adopted the term cathode from the Greek, meaning descent, the path of generation, in place of negative. From the cathode emerge the swarm of electrons and the wonderful rays that have revolutionized scientific understanding. The cathode, or negative pole, is effectively the mother principle of electrical phenomena and the finest forms of matter known to science. Thus, the Hermetists are justified in substituting the term feminine for negative when discussing this pole of activity, as it accurately reflects its generative essence. The latest scientific theories further support this Hermetic view, asserting that creative corpuscles or electrons are feminine, composed of feminine energy, rather than negative electricity in Hermetic terms. A feminine corpuscle detaches from a masculine corpuscle and embarks on a new course, actively seeking union with another masculine corpuscle, driven by an innate impulse to create new forms of matter or energy. This dynamic interplay of detachment and union forms the very basis of chemical activity. When a feminine corpuscle unites with a masculine one, a rapid vibration occurs under the masculine influence, leading to the birth of a new atom, a composite of masculine and feminine electrons. This process of detachment and subsequent reunion, termed ionization, highlights the feminine electrons as the most active agents in nature's creative field. From these unions, the varied phenomena of light, heat, electricity, magnetism, attraction, repulsion, and chemical affinity emerge, all products of the principle of gender operating on the plane of energy. The role of the masculine principle in this context is to direct a specific inherent energy towards the feminine principle, thereby initiating the creative processes. However, it is the feminine principle that consistently performs the active creative work across all planes. Yet, neither principle can operate effectively without the indispensable assistance of the other. In many organic life forms, both principles are combined within a single organism. Indeed, everything in the organic world manifests both genders, with the masculine implicitly present in the feminine form, and vice versa. The Hermetic teachings delve extensively into the operation of these two gender principles in the production and manifestation of various energy forms. While acknowledging that scientific proof for some of these deeper applications is not yet available, the authors assert that the phenomena of electrons and corpuscles already offer clear scientific substantiation for the underlying principles. Leading scientific investigators have even noted something akin to sex activity in the formation of crystals, further indicating the convergence of modern science with this ancient Hermetic truth. The Hermetists propose that the very law of gravitation, the mysterious force of attraction between all particles and bodies of matter, is merely another manifestation of the principle of gender, operating as an attraction between masculine and feminine energies. While direct scientific proof for this specific claim is not presented, the authors encourage the reader to examine all physical phenomena through the lens of the gender principle, suggesting it provides a more coherent working hypothesis than existing scientific explanations. Mental gender, the dual mind and its mastery, the most profound application of the principle of gender lies on the mental plane. Students of modern psychology will readily recognize the pervasive concept of the dual mind that has gained prominence in recent decades, giving rise to theories of objective and subjective minds, conscious and subconscious minds, or voluntary and involuntary minds. While varying in detail, these theories share an underlying recognition of the mind's inherent duality. The Hermetic student, with an amused detachment, observes these new theories, knowing that the ancient Hermetic doctrine of mental gender has long accounted for this dual mind phenomenon. The Hermetic philosophy identifies the masculine principle of mind with what modern psychologists term the objective mind, conscious mind, voluntary mind, or active mind. Conversely, the feminine principle of mind corresponds to the subjective mind, subconscious mind, involuntary mind, or passive mind. While the Hermetic teachings do not entirely align with all modern theories regarding the nature and specific attributes of these mental phases, some of which are deemed far-fetched and unsubstantiated by experiment, they emphasize the fundamental agreement on the duality itself. Indeed, as Dr. Thompson J. Hudson, a proponent of the dual mind theory, noted at the beginning of the law of psychic phenomena, The mystic jargon of the Hermetic philosophers discloses the same general idea. Had he delved deeper into this jargon, he might have found even greater illumination. The Hermetic teachers guide their students to understand mental gender through introspection by examining the report of their own consciousness concerning their self. Initially, consciousness reports a singular I am. However, a more careful inquiry reveals that this I am can be functionally separated into two distinct yet harmoniously operating aspects, the I and the me. The me is typically the aspect mistaken for the I by the uninitiated. It encompasses a person's feelings, tastes, likes, dislikes, habits, and all the qualities that constitute their personality. These emotions and feelings are recognized as transient, subject to the principles of rhythm and polarity, constantly shifting from one extreme to another. The me also includes the accumulated knowledge within the mind, forming a part of one's perceived self. For many, the me is largely intertwined with their physical body and its appetites. Their consciousness is so bound to their bodily nature that they virtually live there. Some even extend this identification to their personal apparel, believing their personality would dissolve without it. However, as an individual evolves in consciousness, they learn to disentangle their me from their bodily identification, recognizing the body as something that belongs to their mental part rather than being their core identity. Further introspection allows them to distinguish the me from their fluctuating mental states and emotions. They realize that these internal states are merely things, produced by a part of their mentality existing within them but not being them. Through conscious effort of will, they discover they can change these internal states, even producing opposite feelings, while the underlying me persists. This disciplined process of mental analysis allows the student to categorize these various mental states, emotions, habits, and qualities as mental belongings, some valuable, some mere curiosities, some encumbrances, and to set them aside in a not me collection. Once this laying aside process is undertaken, the student consciously discovers a self that exists in its dual I and me aspects. The me is experienced as a mental something, within which thoughts, ideas, emotions, and feelings can be generated. It is akin to a mental womb, as the ancients styled it, possessing enormous latent powers for generating mental offspring. However, the me is conscious of its need to receive energy from either its I companion or another I to initiate its mental creations. The student then discovers the IA, a distinct mental something that can will the me to act along specific creative lines, and which can also stand aside as an observer, witnessing the mental creation unfold. Resting in the consciousness of the I reveals not an active generative ability in the sense of a gradual mental process, but rather a profound sense of ability to project energy from the I to the me, a process of willing for the mental creation to commence and proceed. The I thus represents the masculine principle of mental gender, the aspect of being, while the me represents the feminine principle, the aspect of becoming. The principle of correspondence is vividly manifest here, mirroring the creation of universes by the All, as above, so below, as below, so above. These two aspects of the mind, the masculine and feminine principles, the I and the me, when considered in conjunction with the Hermetic teachings on vibration, provide the master key to understanding the often dimly perceived regions of mental operation and manifestation. The principle of mental gender underpins the entire field of mental influence and psychic phenomena. The feminine principle inherently tends towards receiving impressions and generating new thoughts, concepts, and ideas, including the work of imagination. The masculine principle, conversely, concerns itself with the work of the will in its various phases. Crucially, without the active stimulation and direction of the masculine will, the feminine principle is prone to passively generating mental images derived primarily from external impressions, rather than producing original mental creations. Individuals who can sustain active attention and deep thought on a subject effectively employ both mental principles, the feminine in active mental generation and the masculine will in stimulating and energizing this creative mental process. The unfortunate reality for the majority of people is that their masculine principle, the will, remains largely dormant or lazy. They are content to live predominantly within their me consciousness, ruled by thoughts and ideas instilled by the EI of other minds, becoming mere shadows and echoes of stronger wills. The power of suggestion, the transfer or impression of an idea from one mind to another, causing the second mind to act accordingly, is a direct manifestation of mental gender and vibration. The masculine principle of the suggester projects vibratory energy or willpower towards the feminine principle of the recipient, which, upon acceptance, internalizes the idea and acts as if it were its own, often without conscious awareness of its external origin. The strong men and women of the world consistently manifest a powerful masculine principle of will. Their strength stems from their ability to dominate their own minds, shaping their internal mental images according to their desires, and subsequently influencing the minds of others. Leaders, orators, artists, and public figures often unconsciously employ this principle to implant their seed thoughts into the collective consciousness, leading the masses to think and act in alignment with the stronger individual's will. This explains the often sheep-like behavior of the general populace, who rarely originate ideas or actively use their own mental powers. The manifestation of mental gender is ubiquitous in everyday life. Magnetic personalities are those adept at using their masculine principle to impress their ideas upon others. The actor who effortlessly evokes laughter or tears, the compelling orator, the persuasive statesman, the inspiring preacher, the captivating writer, all are exercising this principle. The peculiar influence one person exerts over another, often described as personal magnetism or fascination, is a direct result of the interplay of mental gender along vibratorial lines. This principle contains the secret to hypnosis and many forms of psychic influence. The Kybalion concludes by reiterating the profound utility of its teachings. It offers not a new philosophy, but the fundamental outlines of a venerable, world-old system of thought that clarifies and reconciles diverse and often conflicting doctrines. By providing the student with this master key, particularly the understanding of mental gender, the chaotic landscape of psychic phenomena and mental science becomes amenable to intelligent classification and study. It empowers the individual to unlock countless doors in the temple of knowledge, to delve into any occult library with new eyes, illuminated by the ancient light from Egypt, and to apply these immutable, universal laws of life for personal growth and conscious mastery. Hermetic Axioms, Wisdom for Practical Living. The concluding chapter distills the essence of the Hermetic philosophy into a series of concise, potent Hermetic axioms, practical statements of truth designed not merely for intellectual apprehension, but for tangible application in daily life. The overarching theme woven through these axioms is the absolute imperative of use. Knowledge, the Kybalion forcefully asserts, is like hoarded precious metals, vain and foolish if merely stored away and secreted. Knowledge, like wealth, is intended for use. The law of use is universal, and he who violates it suffers by reason of his conflict with natural forces. This dictum underscores that true understanding blossoms only through active expression and practice. It is a stern warning against mental miserliness, urging the student to translate acquired wisdom into action, to study the axioms and aphorisms, but most importantly, to live them, for they are not truly one's own until they have been utilized. Several key axioms, accompanied by the initiate's illuminating commentary, serve as actionable directives for the aspiring hermetist to change your mood or mental state, change your vibration. This axiom directly links internal states to the principle of vibration. The commentary elucidates that this change is achieved by a conscious effort of will, which directs attention towards a more desirable mental state. Will, therefore, is the prime mover, guiding attention, which in turn alters the mental vibration. The cultivation of the art of attention through the disciplined exercise of will is revealed as the secret to mastering one's moods and mental states. It implies that emotional shifts are not arbitrary but are amenable to conscious control through internal energetic adjustments. To destroy an undesirable rate of mental vibration, put into operation the principle of polarity and concentrate upon the opposite pole to that which you desire to suppress. Kill out the undesirable by changing its polarity. This is presented as one of the most vital Hermetic formulas, grounded in true scientific principles. As previously explained, a mental state and its apparent opposite are merely two poles of the same underlying quality. Mental transmutation allows for the reversal of polarity. The commentary draws a powerful analogy. To dispel darkness, one doesn't try to shovel it out, one simply opens the shutters and lets in the light. Similarly, to eliminate a negative quality like fear, one does not directly combat the fear itself, but rather actively cultivates its opposite, courage. By concentrating on the positive pole of that quality, the mental vibrations gradually shift, leading to a natural polarization on the positive end of the spectrum. The reverse is also cautioned, as persistent focus on negative poles can inadvertently strengthen undesirable traits. Through conscious polarization, one can master moods, transform mental states, reshape disposition, and fundamentally build character. This application of polarity is a core facet of mental transmutation, emphasizing a strategic, indirect approach to self-improvement. Rhythm may be neutralized by an application of the art of polarization. This axiom reiterates the Hermetic understanding of the principle of rhythm as it manifests on the mental plane, the relentless pendulum swing of moods, feelings, and emotions. The commentary explains the law of neutralization by consciously rising to a higher plane of consciousness. The master causes the rhythmic swing of the mental pendulum to manifest on the lower plane, the unconscious, thereby escaping its conscious effects. This is achieved by polarizing on the higher self, the I am pole, rather than the fluctuating pole of personality. Through persistent refusal and denial of rhythm's influence, the Hermetist stands firm in their statement of being, allowing the pendulum to swing back on the lower plane without disturbing their higher polarity. While the principle of rhythm itself is indestructible, the master overcomes it by counterbalancing one law with another, maintaining an equilibrium. This reflects a profound understanding of universal laws, where mastery is achieved not by breaking laws, but by applying higher laws to transcend lower ones. Nothing escapes the principle of cause and effect, but there are many planes of causation, and one may use the laws of the higher to overcome the laws of the lower. This axiom is a powerful declaration of human agency within the cosmic order. By understanding and applying the art of polarization and the neutralization of rhythm, the Hermetist ascends to a higher plane of causation. From this elevated perspective, they can counterbalance the laws operating on lower planes. The masses of people are typically effects, carried along by environment, the wills of others, inherited tendencies, and external suggestions, like pawns on life's chessboard. But the advanced Hermetist, by mastering their own moods, emotions, impulses, and feelings, effectively becomes a cause, creating new characters, qualities, and powers that allow them to dominate their ordinary environment. They become conscious players in the game of life, rather than mere pieces being moved. While even the highest beings remain subject to cause and effect as it manifests on higher planes, on the lower planes of activity, they transition from slaves to masters. As the Kybalion eloquently states, the wise man falls in with the law, and by understanding its movements he operates it instead of being its blind slave. Just as does the skilled swimmer turn this way and that way, going and coming as he will, instead of being as the log which is carried here and there. So is the wise man as compared to the ordinary man, and yet both swimmer and log, wise man and fool, are subject to law. He who understands this is well on the road to mastery. The ultimate conclusion of the Kybalion is enshrined in the axiom: true Hermetic transmutation is a mental art. This encapsulates the entire thrust of the Hermetic teachings. The profound work of influencing one's environment, of transforming conditions and phenomena, is accomplished through the power of mentality. Since the universe is fundamentally mental in its substance, it follows that mind is the supreme power affecting its phenomena. With this understanding, all so-called miracles and wonder workings are revealed not as supernatural deviations, but as natural manifestations of the application of higher mental laws. The book culminates by reiterating its foundational truth: the all is mind, the universe is mental. This simple yet infinitely profound statement encapsulates the entire Hermetic worldview, inviting the reader to embrace a reality where consciousness is primary, where universal laws provide the framework for both freedom and mastery, and where the human mind holds an intrinsic power to reshape its experience of the mental universe. The journey through the Kybalion is thus an invitation to awaken to this profound reality and to begin the conscious practice of Hermetic alchemy, transforming oneself and one's world from within. Thank you for exploring the Kybalion with Occult Mysticism. If its hermetic truths resonate with you, share your insights below and connect with fellow seekers. Like, subscribe, and tap the bell for more esoteric wisdom. Keep unveiling the mysteries with us. Until next time.